You can have normal thyroid labs, but you have all the symptoms of hypothyroidism, and it's because you typically have cellular hypothyroidism. So you can make it, but you don't have the mineral resources to get it inside your cells. I see that a lot. I will say though, most thyroid labs that are normal, they're not in the optimal range. Still, there's usually never one root cause. It's always multiple things. And another big one that I see is just like low minerals and what depletes your minerals. Stress is a huge one.
Mainstream mental health is flawed, and I'm pulling back the curtain. I'm Andrea Clark, a former family therapist who walked away from the system to expose the truth. After my own journey from medication maze to holistic healing, I'm here to challenge the status quo and reveal the mental health truths most people don't know. The truth about mental health is your radical roadmap to wellness. Raw stories, expert insights, breakthrough solutions. This is where traditional modalities end and real healing begins. Amanda Montalvo is the founder of Hormone Healing RD. She has always been in women's health, but her own battle with hormonal imbalances is what ignited a passion that led her here. She went off of hormonal birth control at age 20, and her life was never the same. She was diagnosed with hypothyroidism, PCOS, and her acne continued to worsen. She didn't receive the help she needed from either conventional or functional medicine. When she discovered hair and mineral testing, it changed everything for her. That's why she created the Master Your Minerals course, a course that teaches women how to understand and address their mineral imbalances to support their hormones. Amanda and I had an incredibly powerful conversation about how our mineral levels affect our thyroid, our hormones, our mental health, and our mood during perimenopause and beyond. And I cannot wait for you to dive into this episode. Hi, Amanda. I'm so excited you're here with us.
Thank you for having me, Andrea. I'm very excited for this conversation. I'm sure we'll probably want to talk for hours.
I know. A lot of times I find myself just having to cut me and the person off because we could just go on and on about all the amazing things, right? And the intricacies and, all the information and experiences. So I'm really excited. Thank you for making time to teach everybody today and share your story. And you have an incredible practice. And I would love to have you maybe start by sharing how you even started your hormone healing practice and your mineral testing practice. What led you there?
I was making a lot of lifestyle changes. I was in college to be a dietitian, and I was like eating better, making all these changes, non-toxic products. This was like 16 years ago also. So there was like none of this happening at the time. There was no information out. I was just like, and I was really questioning my birth control, mostly because I was feeling like very depressed on it. And I felt like I had to take it. There was no other options. No one's talking about fertility awareness method. There's no courses I just felt like I had no other options. But I was like, man, I just don't like what it's doing to me. And then I found out I wasn't ovulating on it, which I didn't know. You don't know when you take it when you're like a teenager. So yeah, and I was like, I really want to have kids one day. I just don't feel great on this. I'm making all these other changes. I'm going to come off. And I asked my doctor and he's like, yep, just after you finish that next packet, you just won't take more. Like, you're fine. And I'm like, okay. Was not fine. And I ended up not getting my period back for a year. I already had acne, but it like really worsened.
Yeah.
Very painful, cystic acne, like chest, back, everything. And then my hair was falling out. And I'm like, man, what? I'm in college. Terrible time.
How old were you?
I was 20.
You were so young.
Yeah, I was very young. I will say, I felt worse in so many ways, but mentally I did feel better.
Right. Okay.
So and I don't regret it, obviously, but basically I'm like having all these crazy symptoms, and I was a college athlete. So I'm like, what's happening?
Yeah.
And then I go get blood work done. They're like, well, you have hypothyroidism. And then my period wouldn't come back. And they're like, well, you have PCOS. I don't know. Did I have PCOS? I don't know. Because I was so young. I was so young when I went on the pill. I don't know what my cycle was like, really.
How old were you, if you mind me?
I was 14.
Yeah, I was put on birth control when I was 14.
Yeah. So it's like how I didn't even have that many, your cycles are very erratic. It's normal for them to be all over the place when you're that young. So I didn't even know what my normal was, and just so many problems with it. I couldn't get any help. They gave me thyroid meds, which didn't help. And I'd already done all the creams and antibiotics and stuff for my acne. And I was just like, wow, I feel like no one can help me. And it was really hard. And I was like sports nutrition all the way. That's what I thought my whole life was going to be. And then I completely shifted my focus, and I was like, I had to spend all my time. I feel like all I did was like research. I'm in PubMed. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with my body. And it really shifted my focus to women's health. And I was like, wow, how underserved are we that we don't even have basic information if you come off your doctor can't even tell you what's going on, so it was like really hard, but it was a beautiful shift, and I'm really happy that it happened, obviously. But I definitely went down the functional medicine pipeline, right? I tried to see a functional medicine doctor. I'm doing Dutch tests. I'm doing stool tests. I'm doing oat tests. I'm doing all the tests, all the protocols, and I'd feel like a little bit better. And then I would stop the supplements and all my symptoms would come back. And I'm like, okay, I can't be on a protocol forever. And I kept thinking like, no, this is my root cause. So I'm chasing my symptoms. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And one of my colleagues, he's more of like a mentor. He was like, do a hair test. And I'm like, those aren't even real. Like, they're not even accurate. I'm thinking he's crazy. And he was like, I'm telling you, you sound like you've got copper issues. And I'm like, fine. So I researched it, of course, and I'm like, okay, so they're legitimate. The EPA's got all this information on them. And so I go down the rabbit hole and I do it, and I get my test results back, and it was like me to a T. I had a calcium shell. So like it's literally your body creating a shell to protect you. And I was very like emotionally like numbed out and like not feeling a lot of feelings because my body was literally trying to protect me. And I had really high copper, which is very common with the pill. And so I was like, okay, this is why I keep trying stuff and I feel better. And then I come off and I'm like kind of just sliding right back to where I was. And so it was a very inexpensive test. And I'm like, man, why don't more people do this? I couldn't believe it. I started adding it to my practice. I was getting way better results with my clients. It was a lot less expensive, and it was just a lot quicker too to see results with people. And I was like, okay. And I just became obsessed. I learned everything I could about it, and I did them on everyone I knew. My husband has done way too many hair tests, and everyone I know, both my sisters, I helped them come off birth control the right way, and they didn't have any symptoms. It just like evolved into me doing hair test reviews for like hundreds of women. I did that for 3 years, and then I made my course. I had my one-on-one practice, and here I am like 10 years later, still constantly talking about minerals and doing hair testing.
That's incredible. And how are you feeling? How are you feeling right now? Like, how are things for you?
Things are good. And I use it through my pregnancies, my postpartum, because your health shifts over the years. My first pregnancy, I had like some gut and immune stuff I didn't realize until I was pregnant, because your immune system shifts a lot during pregnancy. And I was like, I'm symptomatic. This is awful. And it really helped me then. And for me, my husband's in the military and his job is terrible and he's gone all the time. And I don't think that I could have gotten through all of it if I didn't have a very good understanding of how to build my capacity with my nervous system, taking care of myself, all those things, but also how to support my minerals, to support my adrenals and my thyroid. Cause it's hard. Our kids are little. I have a business, we don't have family near us. It's a lot. So I cannot wait we're almost out of that season, but I'm it really did help me thrive as much as I could in it.
It's incredible. I would be curious to know how first of all, I'm curious how frequently you test yourself. Mm-hmm. Is it every quarter or?
So I'm very big on, I don't test unless I'm going to do something with the results. And I'm like that with everyone we work with. I'm like, do I have the capacity to make a change right now? And if not, I'm not going to test, because it's probably not going to help me mentally and with my stress, right? So I'm in the season where my kids are 3 and 1. And so during pregnancy, I test twice, usually the beginning and halfway through. And then I'll test 4 months postpartum. And now this postpartum season, I've been trying to optimize things a little bit more. So probably every like 5 months, which is more for me. Like I'd probably test like 1 to 2 times a year previously, like before entering the mom era. So I would, and then like for most of our clients and stuff, I'm like, every 6 months is usually enough. Cause again, like you have to give it yourself time to see a change in your minerals. And then also, you don't always want to be in healing mode, like obsessing.
Right. Obsessive. So I'm so curious because a lot of people don't even understand what minerals do. Yeah. And I'll be honest, until a couple of years ago, I don't want to say I didn't know what minerals were. I mean, I knew what they were, but I just didn't realize that we need, like, minerals are a foundational building block for everything in our body. I mean, it sounds so silly that I'm saying this, but because
we're in the US, they're like, if you ask your doctor, they're going to be like, unless it's iron, honestly, iron is the only mineral that is constantly pushed on women. I really feel like everything else is like, oh, it's very unlikely that you're going to be deficient is typically what.
Yes. And it's not, there's no just general education about it or anything.
Even for women, especially with like copper imbalances and stuff. I mean, like women should be educated, especially if you're going to take hormonal birth control or something or HRT, you should be educated on how it could affect you.
Anxiety, mood swings, brain fog, hormonal chaos. Before you blame stress or just being a woman, have you checked your mineral levels? Minerals are the foundation of your mental health and hormones. Magnesium, zinc, copper, and iron control everything from your mood and energy to your cycle and stress response. But most women are walking around depleted, and they don't even know it. Here's the truth. Birth control, stress, and even pregnancy can drain your minerals, leaving you feeling anxious, exhausted, and out of balance. But no one's testing for it. When I got tested, I found several key minerals were significantly out of balance, even though I eat well and I take excellent care of myself. It was a wake-up call that changed everything for me and my health. You don't need to just deal with it. You need to get balanced. A simple at-home mineral test can give you real answers, so you can stop guessing and start healing at the root. Check out hormonehealingrd.com and use code MHM20 for $20 off your test today. You can also check the show notes for links and codes. I'm curious how your minerals shifted during pregnancy. That I'm very fascinated about now that I have education around minerals. Can you give us, for the listeners, just a brief understanding of what minerals do and how they could affect our thyroid and our hormones and our gut and all of that?
Yeah. So minerals, they really act like spark plugs in the body. So they turn on enzymes. So enzymes basically just kick off different reactions. And for everything, like blood sugar, for example, very common. We have a ton of enzymes that help us use glucose in the body or use insulin properly. And so that keeps our blood sugar nice and stable. So you have like good energy. You're not like dealing with dips and fatigue and stuff like that. And magnesium is one of the minerals that's really important for activating those enzymes and making sure it runs correctly. And so literally every system in the body has enzymes, and all those enzymes require different minerals. So it's everything. It's like you mentioned thyroid. We need like 10 different minerals to make, convert, and use thyroid hormone. So that's a huge one. And that was like a huge part of my health history of like getting off thyroid meds. And I'm not even on medication, but like if you don't feel better taking it, you're kind of like, okay, well, what am I supposed to be doing here? This isn't making a difference. So it really affects everything, and not even just those systems, but also when I think about like someone, holistically, it's like, okay, well, if they have digestive issues, why? Where's that coming from?
Yeah.
Are their adrenals functioning optimally? Their thyroid? That's what's going to dictate. Are you making digestive juices to break down your food properly? And that's fueled by minerals. But then also, stomach acids made from sodium and potassium. So if you have low levels of those, that can affect your ability to make enough stomach acid. And like to make bile, we need sulfur. Bile is so not talked about enough, but it is one of those things where like we get rid of estrogen in there, we get rid of excess copper, mold. Everyone with mold issues usually have bile issues. And it's so important to have good, healthy bile. And so you need good minerals to do that. And then detox pathways. I feel like people talk about like detox and drainage pathways and opening up those. I'm like, well, if you don't have enough minerals, just forget it. Because it doesn't matter how much dandelion or whatever you're taking for your kidneys. It doesn't matter because your detoxification is not going to happen properly if your metabolism, if you're not making enough energy and everything, you need minerals to detoxify. That's like one of the big things is I'm sure, I mean, you did a hair test, so you know when you're doing a mineral protocol, you will detox. There's no way you're not going to. And so that's why you always have some sort of support in there, and education around like, if you get symptomatic, like do this, you know, because most people don't have great detoxification and they have mineral imbalances and deficiencies that make it harder. And then when they start to improve that, it's like huge difference, like energy, mental ability, memory, focus, and then just digestion, how you feel, blood sugar, all the things.
Okay. Amazing. Okay. So I am so curious to know about how your minerals may have shifted, your levels may have shifted during pregnancy.
Yeah. It's funny because I was like a slow 1 metabolic type. So there's like slow and fast metabolic types. And then there's numbers next to each one. So it's like slow 1, 2, 3, 4 or fast 1, 2, 3, 4. And a slow 1 is when everything is slow. And it's not like a lot of people are like, what's the best metabolic type? There's not a perfect metabolic type. It's more just telling you, hey, this is like the stage of stress your body is in for the last few months. And that's what I love about the hair test is it shows you the last 3 months of your time. And it's so funny because I always get dietitians that are like, but it doesn't show you like the most recent data. I'm like, a blood test is a drop in time. I want to see the last few months of a client, you know? So I love that. And basically, if you're a slow type, that means your nervous system is more in the slower, kind of like stuck in rest and digest state. And then adrenals are slow and thyroid is slow, which doesn't sound good, but it can be balanced and it can be close to optimal. And then when I got pregnant, and this happens to a lot of women, your metabolism is working so hard. I mean, your thyroid's at like 150% capacity. And so I moved to a fast type and I've stayed there ever since.
Interesting.
I know, isn't that? It's like, it just like hasn't changed. And it's not always, again, like I've had plenty of clients that have stayed in the slow type and it's like, it's good. You burn through minerals a little less quickly. You know, when you're fast type, your metabolism faster, you're using more resources. But usually if you're giving yourself those resources, you're fine. So it is very normal to speed up and we don't want to necessarily like manipulate our metabolic type. You don't need to do that. It's more just like a piece of information. And I will often see like higher copper in pregnancy because estrogen goes up. So copper levels typically increase. Mine didn't increase a ton. Copper was my big issue. So I did a lot of work on copper for like a decade before I even had kids.
Yeah.
And just like they typically decrease. I mean, you lose like 10% of your minerals during pregnancy. We don't even know how much like postpartum when you're nursing. But it's funny because I feel like pregnancy and postpartum, it's looked at as like these like depleting states. Like you can't like, oh, I'm going to get pregnant, so I'm not going to even bother like supporting my gut or trying to support my minerals because I'm just going to like deplete them. But I felt really good, especially during my second pregnancy. And I'm like, I think if you can really support your body and look at it as like your body's literally growing life, you're like adding something, it can be a very like healing state. It doesn't have to be depleting. It can be like very positive. And I've seen clients and even my labs where their minerals improve in pregnancy. And because it's also like your stress response. Like, you got a newborn, it's hard, but like you got a little blush on your chest for 3-4 months. You know, it's very healing, I feel like. So I think it can be really supportive. But yeah, typically they're going to go up and down. A lot of women will get depleted, but not always. And most women will move to like a faster metabolic type.
So if somebody got depleted and they don't really understand the power of minerals, what is the potential that can happen?
It's like when you think of the classic like postpartum mom, like no energy, wired but tired, doesn't like very like snaps at things, doesn't have a big capacity to handle, isn't handling the stress well. Yeah, that's what I feel like that's like most first time moms, honestly. Yes. I feel like, and not always, some women get into this stuff before they have kids, but it's usually that is often ignites the passion for this kind of stuff for a lot of women. And like thyroid issues, like why can't I lose the baby weight even though I'm breastfeeding type situation, or I lost weight and then I'm like starting to gain it again and they're like a year postpartum and just not feeling great, or they get their cycle back and it's like they have a short luteal phase or it's irregular. So it's just showing like there's dysfunction there. And it's usually comes back to your adrenals and your thyroid. Iodine, you use so much iodine when you're pregnant and then breastfeeding. So it's like, if you don't know that like, hey, you should probably be taking iodine and its cofactors, of course it's going to get depleted. And your mom's iodine was probably depleted.
Yes. That's something that when I was working with my very first practitioner a couple of years ago, on my minerals, she explained, she's like, you came into the world in a sense with your mom's mineral profile, right? And so if your mom had certain depleted minerals, you were born with that, right? And I thought that was, it makes sense to me. And so, it's funny because I'm dealing with some thyroid issues. And of course, my practitioner's like, well, it just sometimes happens. And I'm like, nothing just happens. There's always a cause and effect. There's things that have happened leading up to it, whether it's my minerals, whether it, whatever it is. But that's just the explanation. Like, oh yeah, we don't really know why, and just end up having thyroid issues after they've had babies or in perimenopause. And I'm like, okay, but there's a reason, right? There's a reason. And I'm curious, when you are working with women who are having thyroid issues, right? And maybe weight loss resistance, do you typically see certain types of mineral depletion, or is it just different for every person?
I see very often it's like depleted minerals, but a lot of times I'll see like a classic slow one that's like higher calcium, very low potassium. Because here's the thing with thyroid stuff is, you can have normal thyroid labs, but you have all the symptoms of hypothyroidism. And it's because you typically have cellular hypothyroidism. So you can make it, but you don't have the mineral resources to get it inside your cells.
Yes.
And so I see that a lot. I will say though, most thyroid labs that are like normal they're not in the optimal range. So there's usually never one root cause. It's always multiple things. So like that is a big piece of the puzzle. Like if you don't have enough potassium, it's hard to get thyroid hormone inside the cell. If you have really high calcium, like I had that calcium shell, it makes it hard for thyroid hormone to bind to receptors. So it literally prevents you from using it, even if your levels look normal. And another big one that I see is just like low minerals across the board, because we need so many minerals to make thyroid hormone, to transport it, convert it, and then get it in the cells. So it's thyroid, I think, is so mineral driven. And what depletes your minerals, right? Stress is a huge one.
Yeah.
Are you using them up very quickly? Are you getting enough in your diet? Are you taking medications or supplements that are depleting them? And then, like you said, like our inherited health. If my mom was deficient in like vitamin A and iodine, of course that's going to affect my thyroid health. And it's like, I don't even think my mom took a prenatal. She's like, we didn't have prenatals,
Right.
So it's just like, it's so different. And I didn't grow up eating terribly, but definitely not like the best. And we barely ever ate seafood. So it's like I was very deficient in iodine. And that was a huge part of my healing journey. And like getting pregnant, we had a hard time conceiving our first daughter. So I do think it's like very connected to minerals, but it's not just like, oh, I'm going to add stuff in. When you think about minerals, you have to think about, why are you using them all up in the first place? And that's like your day-to-day habits and lifestyle, which are the hardest things to change, but that typically has the most powerful impact.
I love that. Okay. And tell me a little bit more about this copper, what you were talking about with copper. I'm curious.
This is especially with like when I think of mental health, because copper is one that accumulates in our brain. So if women are going to have more copper shifts anyway, because copper goes up and down with estrogen. So either way, like in pregnancy, your copper can go very high and it's considered normal. There is some research on postpartum depression and copper toxicity. I'll be honest, I don't love the word toxicity, because it makes it sound like copper is really bad. But what's usually happening is that the cofactors to use copper properly, because with minerals, like they all work together. And a lot of the times we need vitamins to like activate them and use them in the body, especially copper, especially iron. And so a lot of women are deficient in vitamin A, which especially like of reproductive age, a lot of young women are deficient in vitamin A. We need vitamin A to take copper and make it a special protein called ceruloplasmin, just so you can use it. If it's just copper, it can accumulate, especially in the brain, and it can cause severe mental emotional symptoms. So hormonal birth control, for example, I've never had a hair test for someone that was on hormonal birth control that didn't have high copper.
Interesting.
And I think like when women come off and then like, I feel crazy. One of my siblings was like that. I was like, well, look at your hair test. I mean, you have this copper that your body can't use. And again, the birth control also depletes vitamin A, which we need to keep copper in motion and using it. So it's one of those minerals that we needed. It's so important. It helps us make energy. It helps us use iron. If a lot of women have iron issues, it's because they don't have copper in the right form in the body. It can either be depleted or just in excess where their body can't use it. And so it's so important, but when it gets out of balance, it's not great. And a lot of women will have imbalances and not know it. And then especially like with your adrenals and thyroid issues, because you need healthy functioning adrenals and enough T3, which is the active thyroid hormone, to make ceruloplasmin. So you can be taking all the vitamin A you want, you know, because you think about like, okay, well, I'm going to supplement with the cofactors for copper. I'm going to have vitamin A. I'm going to do vitamin C and magnesium. Maybe I'll use some taurine, all very helpful. But if you're super stressed and you're still stuck in fight or flight all the time, you're probably still not going to be making that ceruloplasmin. You know, you're still going to accumulate it. So that's why copper is it's a lot of my like type A people will have copper issues because they just cannot. They're trying to formulate it. They're like, I'm going to take this much cod liver oil for vitamin A and then this much vitamin C. I'm like, you cannot like checklist your way out of this issue.
Yeah. So this is really interesting because my husband and I have been on this journey with learning about gene mutations and methylation issues. Mm-hmm. And both of us have different MTHFR variants and different COMT variants.
Okay.
And I read something about like copper overload and with methylation issues and also like estrogen dominance even in men.
Oh yeah. Yeah, men can have copper.
And I mean, I don't know how much you know about like methylation, but I would be curious when you say it can cause like, you know, copper in the brain or, you know, copper overload, when you say it can create mental health issues, what do you mean by that? Like depression, anxiety, brain fog?
A lot of it is like huge mood swings. It can definitely do brain fog. It can also like, because it causes excess estrogen, that estrogen then can bind to thyroid hormone. So you can get any hypothyroid symptom because of how it impacts estrogen. But like if someone's going through copper dumping, which say you start to support some of the cofactors of copper, but you do it too fast, or you take something like zinc, I'm so cautious with like individual mineral supplements. I'm like, yeah, do a test. It's just not worth it, in my opinion. You're just kind of like throwing your money out and like probably causing more imbalances. It's like just test and don't guess and focus on food and stress and lifestyle in the meantime. But you can have copper dumping where if you have like an accumulation of copper, a lot of times it's stuck in the tissues. And so you start to try to bring it out too quickly and you don't have a binder to kind of mop it up. Like it's intense mood, usually like manic kind of behavior. Most people will think they're having like a manic type of episode or you think of like PMDD type symptoms around ovulation and luteal time, that super intense shift. I don't feel like myself. And it happened very quickly. What you can see with the copper stuff. I've also just seen people like kind of lean more towards like depression, anxiety outside of like the dumping, just having the accumulation. But it's like, how much of that is their thyroid health? Because those are both symptoms of hypothyroidism. So it's hard to nail down exactly what it is. But yeah, you can have like pretty big mood changes. They're significant. They're enough to like where you're like, what's going on? You know, something's not right. And it can be related to how that copper is just like, especially if you like take too much vitamin C and you've got copper issues or zinc. And if your adrenals are exhausted, like there's so many other gentle ways to like nudge copper and support it and make sure you're using it versus just like trying to get rid of it. And it does affect methylation. You need copper for methylation, but you need it in that ceruloplasmin form.
Yeah.
Right. So if you, again, it can lead to a lot of detox issues, but yeah, it can affect estrogen detoxification and you get rid of copper in your bile. And so if you have high copper, high estrogen, that thickens up your bile and then that can lead to gallbladder issues.
Interesting. Okay. This is amazing. So I'm curious your thoughts about people who just take different minerals, and because, they see online, like, yeah, this mineral or this vitamin is really good for you or whatever for this reason. You also see like the trace mineral drops.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any level of that that's okay? Or do you feel like people shouldn't take anything like that? Like, I have some trace mineral drops that I drop into like a morning little mocktail that I make, right? But if you're not getting tested regularly, is that potentially more harmful than helpful?
I think so. Like, just to give people context, so trace minerals drops, what do those have in them? They have a magnesium, a little bit, I think it's like a very tiny bit of sodium, a little bit of potassium, like trace amounts of other minerals, chloride, a little tiny bit of boron, but like they're mostly magnesium with trace amounts of other minerals. I think most people do okay with magnesium, but if you take magnesium and you feel worse and you're like, but everyone told me it's going to help me sleep, why does it make me feel terrible? It's typically because you have low sodium. And so you want to focus on sodium first. So the way I like to, because I don't think you can't do anything. I just think like people take zinc willy-nilly and I'm like, it doesn't, what if you, I've had some people I have an iron deficiency, but I'm like, well, you're taking 30 milligrams of zinc every day. So that's affecting your copper and that's affecting your iron, everything with minerals, like they're synergistic, but they're also antagonistic. And so there's ways to like supplement with different minerals to help pull other minerals out and support them. There's also ways to like antagonize them, which can be helpful in some instances. But I always think about like your macro minerals are calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, and phosphorus. But we're going to focus on the first four for now. And if you're getting these primarily through food, I think that's fine. And like the trace minerals, I wouldn't go crazy with it because sometimes people get a lot more magnesium than they think. But if you're using like drops of it, you're not going to get an exorbitant amount of magnesium. But I always say start with supporting your sodium potassium first, specifically potassium, because sodium and potassium work together. Yeah. Think about like, how could I eat more potassium rich foods? Potassium is in so many different foods, so it's really easy. It's in like meat, dairy, all the animal foods. And then it's also in any like whole food carb, fruits, potatoes, squash, beans, that sort of thing. So if you just eat more whole foods, you're typically going to automatically up your potassium intake. And then after you do that for a couple weeks, then you could add in a little bit more sea salts. If you're someone that's like not doing a lot of salt, especially if you crave salt, if you have blood sugar concerns, if you think you might be insulin resistant, or if you have PCOS, things like that, if you don't handle stress well, if you stand up and you're dizzy right away, like you probably need salt. But I don't start with salt because you can get bloating and like water retention. So if you do the potassium first and then add the salt in after, they balance each other out. And so if you ever add salt in and you're like, oh my gosh, I just got like a lot of water retention, then stop it, add more potassium foods in, or even like coconut water. Aloe vera juice, the inner leaf version, has a lot of potassium, and it's like great if you have inflammation in the gut or reflux, or you're just wanting like a more like gut supportive herb that's going to give you a lot of potassium. So you could just add more of that in and it typically evens out like in a few days. But those are the best ones to start with. Most people have low levels of sodium potassium. That's like the most common pattern. And then you could add magnesium in, because a lot of people go straight for magnesium. It's so popular. I understand it's a very important mineral, but you can actually have a harder time increasing sodium if you take too much magnesium and you're not getting enough. And then like you can get stagnant. Like you're like, well, I'm taking this magnesium. A lot of people take it for blood sugar, like insulin, anxiety, sleep, those types of things. If you don't have enough sodium, it's often not as effective. And so those are changes everyone can make. I love like the Paleo Valley electrolytes. They have sodium, potassium, and some magnesium in them. They're delicious. Everyone get the watermelon. You're welcome. And there's plenty of other, like Raby, they have like an adrenal mocktail now. My friend Robin owns that company. It's delicious. And it has like L-theanine in it. So it's like very chill for your adrenals. So I think you can definitely take stuff, but it's when people start doing generic, like I've seen like PCOS protocols and it's like zinc, like tons of zinc. There's a lot of times iron too. And I'm like, most women with PCOS have too much iron, so when we get past the first 4 minerals, it's like you want to be careful because before you think about how am I going to say you did a hair test, it's like, what do I do now? Like, how do I support myself? You always start with your macro minerals first, and then you add supporting minerals, and then you do liver support, drainage, and detox, because at that point your body's going to need it. But it can be like pretty, even those tiny changes. The amount of people I've had, they're like, I started eating more sodium, potassium, and my energy's better. I feel like my blood sugar is more balanced. I'm not constipated. My skin looks better. It can make a big difference.
Mm-hmm. So for any of the women listening, I have a lot of female listeners, and maybe they've never had a mineral test. You've already shared so many things, but what is something you could share, especially perimenopausal women, right? Why is it imperative for them to have a mineral test?
Because it's going to give you your there's just no more guessing. Like, this is why, like, oftentimes, like, people are like, what's your favorite prenatal? I'm like, don't have one, because I don't know what you need. And I really do think it matters. And it's like, you could basically make your own with your hair test. And then, most women that are in that season of life, that post menopause, they're already depleted. So, and then as you transition, you have more irregular cycles, and eventually you don't have any cycles. So you have no more blood loss. So typically iron becomes an issue. It's really important to keep an eye. I will say you do need to do blood work for iron. They measured on the hair test, but you can't just go by the hair test for iron. But ideally, you're checking your iron levels. And the thyroid, it's just like assumed that, thyroid slows down when you get older. I'm like, well, if you're deficient in everything it does, like typically magnesium's really low, sodium, potassium's really low, and you can prevent so many symptoms and have a much easier transition if you work on adrenal and thyroid function, because that's going to affect your digestion. And when it comes to hormones, our gut is critical. Your gut is going to so you have a ton of inflammation there, you're going to use up your progesterone that way, and you're probably going to be estrogen dominant. And that's typically what happens. I will say I often will see women with low testosterone first, but then it's like low testosterone, and then they aren't ovulating as frequently, not having as good a strong ovulation. So progesterone goes down. They kick off perimenopause, super estrogen dominant. And this is then dictated even further by like, are their adrenals functioning well? Because once you go through that transition, the only thing making hormones is your adrenal glands. So there's like so many things you can do to minimize the symptoms and to just like optimize things as much as you can. And I think, HRT is so popular right now. I feel like it's it's like shoved down anyone's throat. If you're like even close to perimenopause, like you need to get on HRT. And I'm like, you need to be a healthy host before you do any HRT. You need to have good adrenals, good thyroid, good gut health, and then you can use those hormones well. But before that, it probably is not going to make a significant difference for most women. So no matter what someone's going to choose, it's like, let's get your body functioning as well as it possibly can. And then the other big thing that women ask me in that season is, what about bone health? My doctor's telling me to take this calcium supplement, and it's usually not calcium that's their problem. It's usually magnesium, because once magnesium gets depleted, we then start losing calcium from our bones and our teeth. And so that worsens, and high iron makes it so that you don't have that bone reformation like you used to before. So if you can balance those minerals, it can help you prevent more bone loss. And then with the iron stuff, like the higher the iron is, the quicker it's going to age you. It's so inflammatory. So it's going to affect your bone health, literally every system in the body. So if you can keep an eye on that and then have an understanding of like, maybe I donate blood once a year to like keep my iron levels in check. Like there's just like, once you know your status there, then you have like a plan, versus like when you're kind of like in limbo, like getting blood work done, like it looks normal, but you don't feel good. It's not helpful.
So this why sometimes people go on medication and it gets a little better, but they're still symptomatic. This isn't about being for anti-medication, but I think people don't really understand that medication is a Band-Aid. Like it is putting wallpaper over a moldy wall. So if you have depleted minerals and you go on a thyroid, like let's say like a T3 med, that might help you feel better, but what does that mean, right? Like if your minerals continue to be depleted or imbalanced and you're on a T3 med, what does that mean for your long-term health?
And higher and higher. Like your dose just keeps going up. I've had so many clients, and it's funny because most people find a sweet spot. They support their minerals and a lot of women come off. And then there's plenty of clients I've had that they stay on like, they'll typically use like Armor Thyroid. That's like a T4, T3 combo. And just because it's typically more effective, depends on the person, but like a 15 milligram dose, that's the lowest dose you can be on. And they're like, I just need a little bit of support, but it works so much better because basically you're just getting an exogenous source of thyroid hormone in your body, right? You still have to use it. You still have to take it up inside your cells. And this is where like I've had clients that are like, yeah, my doctor just keeps upping my dose and my TSH looks better. And then eventually it looks hyperthyroid, but they're like, I don't feel any better. And that's where, okay, you're probably not using the thyroid hormone well. So let's figure out which minerals are out of balance that need support. And then it makes it either more effective. And some women, it's so effective, they have to come off. But a lot of women are just like, oh, I just only need a little bit and I can actually feel a difference now.
Yeah, that's incredible. Okay, tell us about your practice a little bit for people listening in who have just decided they need to go get their first ever hair and minerals analysis. And how does it work? I know you have a course. Do you all work with clients? Like, tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, so I have my Master Your Minerals course, which this recording is literally like the week after I finished launching it. I completely redid the whole thing because I don't know, I have problems. I don't know why I do it to myself, but I just was like, it has to be, I got an idea like a year ago and I made like specific health tracks, like thyroid, endometriosis, PCOS, pregnancy, just because like, yes, it's helpful to understand your test and get the changes, but it's also really nice to have a little bit more specific information, like finding the root cause of your thyroid issues, like that's in there. So, that is one way. And it's definitely like the most accessible way. It's like $347 to do the course. Hair test is $99. You get access for life and it teaches you, I have two roadmaps. One takes you through the why. Why do your minerals look this way? And you go through and check off, like if your calcium is high, you check off everything that applies for why it could be high. Because I want women to understand how they got here. I don't want this to just feel like a one and done. I'm going to do this hair test. Everything's fine. And then I have a protocol PDF that walks you through how do you craft a protocol that's going to be effective and then do everything in the right order. I love it. I'm like obsessed. I have like 4 dietitians that work for me and they're all like obsessed with the new tracks and stuff. It's so funny. Like I'm using the PDF for a client. So we do see clients 101 as well. We have like 4 and 6 month programs. And then I have an option to do a roadmap review if you're in the course. So if you're like, I just want your eyes on my test and I want you to like, people will go through and be like, here's what I think I should do. They fill out an intake form. And then I look at your test and I'm usually like, yes, let's do this, but also let's do this. And just to get another set of eyes on your lab work. But yeah, those are the different ways to do it.
I think what you're doing is amazing because in a way, it's like you're teaching women how to heal themselves, right? Or how to understand how they can reduce or minimize symptoms versus just doing it for them, right? It's a tool. Yeah. But it sounds like it's a very empowering tool because I've had a couple of different hair and mineral analysis tests and I've had some education, right? But usually it's just like, okay, here's why we're going to implement you taking this because this is deficiencies making you feel like this. And I still don't fully understand how it all works together and some other lifestyle changes that I could make long term, right? So I think the way that you're doing it is really incredible.
Thank you. I think the other big thing that I always try to get across too is so many women, like they're really struggling with their health and like all their decisions are being made out of a place of fear.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, and I've been there and I totally understand like getting to that point with your symptoms or like fertility struggles, like things like that. And I'm like, I just like one of the first lessons in there is how to like build a curious mindset on the healing journey. Because again, like symptoms are going to pop up, especially you start detoxing and stuff. It's like, instead of making a decision from like, oh my gosh, this is not right, or like what's going on, getting curious. And it's funny because I have a lot of students that are like, yep, I just needed to watch that one lesson and I was good to go. Didn't have to do everything just because it like reduced the stress. You know, I think it's so easy now with social media to just be obsessed with your health and be looking for the next thing that's going to heal you. And it's like most people have some idea what's going on. And I'm like, if you can tap into that and then actually do some testing that's going to show you the imbalances and then take action on it. And minerals don't lie. You know, they tell you what your stress is like. It's like, it doesn't all have to be done right away. But when you take the time to do it, even over the span of like 6 months to a year, like people can completely transform their health.
Yeah, that's incredible. Where can people find you on social media?
So you can follow me at Hormone Healing RD. And I share a lot there. I have a podcast. I actually just I'm rebranding the podcast now. It's just Hormone Healing RD podcast.
Amazing. Okay. And then we'll also have a link in the show notes to the course as well. I'm so thankful that we had this conversation.
I love being here. I hope your community finds it helpful, and I can't wait to hear. Let me know, DM me guys if you listen to the episode and let me know what you thought.
Absolutely. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you so much for your time and for just pouring your wisdom into the community.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I am eternally grateful you tuned into The Truth About Mental Health. If this message matters to you, please spread the word by subscribing, leaving a 5-star review, and sharing with someone who needs this knowledge. Let's keep reclaiming our mental health together.